So I had 3 days basically to lose a lot of weight. She sat me down and she said, Natasha, I don't know what we're going to do with you. Would literally say like, you're disgusting. I have had some problems with my body image for longer than I realized. So she would scribble out the casting, look at me and say, you're too big. Like, I'll never forget that moment, I don't think, in my life. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Model Me podcast. My name is Natasha Minter. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Today I'm gonna give you a bit of a backstory, and I recently have, you guys, if you've watched us, if you've been on this Model Me journey with us, we are nearly 7 years old, which is absolutely crazy. Most businesses fail in the first 5 years. So if you make it past the 5-year mark, you should just be celebrating every single day that your business is still running, because what they don't tell you when you start a business is how much of it you're going to do by yourself, how much you're going to have to figure out literally by yourself, and probably on a really low budget, unless you go down a certain road of investment or maybe someone in your family has been able to give you money. Like, who knows? I didn't have either of those things. And I just feel so grateful that I've been able to bootstrap this whole time, and I've had amazing people come alongside me and support me through the years. And it's quite amazing, because I do think that bootstrapping has kind of, like, I was reading an article last week and they were saying how bootstrapping is kind of the thing that people want to do now with business. And I'm like, I have been doing this for 7 years, like bootstrapping my business. And the reason why I share that with you is because when you have a vision and a mission so strong, and it's personal as well, my story is really personal, that is what drives me. That is what gets me going. It's the thing that makes me never want to give up. It's the thing that when I'm not really feeling quite like it, or it feels like doors are closing on me, or it feels like I don't really even know how I'm going to make this work, I just go back to the original vision. The original vision for my business, for what it is that I'm trying to do, for what I'm trying to achieve, and really what I want to do to help people. And I think I do talk about my story, like, do I? I mean, I do in segments, and I do when we do our events, but I recently have been reading a really good book called The Key Person of Influence by an amazing, amazing author called Daniel Priestley. I cannot recommend his work enough. Wow. His work I feel like God allowed me to find this book at this time, and it has unlocked things in me. And it's quite amazing, because you can't see behind me, but there's a sheet on my wall that says unlock. And that was my word of the year last year. And I am of the belief that when you have a word of the year, it's not just for that year, it's something to set you up for also the years ahead. And I can testify and say that my words of the year for the last few years have certainly done that for me. So when I was actually gifted the Daniel Priestley Key Person of Influence book. I cannot recommend this book more, especially if I just think everyone should read it. I just think it's such a good book. But yeah, especially if you're running a business, especially if you're building a personal brand, he just breaks it down in such a digestible way. And I'm not going to lie, I have thrown myself in with his work. I've been reading his book called 24 Assets on audiobook, and I've been reading his book called Scorecard Marketing. I'm creating a scorecard for Model Me, which is going to be coming out very soon. In fact, I might even have it live by the time this podcast is live. So fill out our scorecard below and you'll understand a little bit of Daniel Priestley's tools, I suppose, that he's providing people with. And I just, I've always been of the belief that I've always wanted to give stuff out for free for people. And, over the years, you meet many people who have many strong opinions, and you honestly have to get to a point sometimes, like, you just can't listen to everyone. You know what I mean? You just can't. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, if you're starting a business, or if you want to, or maybe you're like trying to prosper in your career, like, I just want to encourage you. You're going to have something to say. Your mom, your auntie, your dog, like, everybody's going to have something to say. And you have to get to a point where you decide whose opinion really matters. And I'm not saying your mum's opinion doesn't matter. Mum, I love you. You know your opinion matters to me. But there are certain things where you have to kind of decide. Like one thing I recently spoke about on our newsletter is not everybody's going to have the faith that you need for this next season of your life. And where I'm going and what I believe God has placed on my heart to fulfill this year, and not even just this year, like I'm not putting a timeline on it, but just the things on where the things that he's put inside of my heart that I believe I need to do now, that I need to act upon now. Not everyone's going to get it, you know? And at the end of last year, I went through a whole process of dying to myself with my externally processing. For many years in my life, I have been like, I'm Tash, I'm an external processor. And as much as that is, you know, as I know you're probably watching this and you're going, what's wrong with that? Well, everything is wrong with that sometimes, because I didn't know when to not share things with my close friends. And I have some amazing close friends, but what I have realized is that even your close friends, you can't tell everything to sometimes. And that's not because I don't trust them or love them or believe that they can hold what I'm saying to them. It's more, sometimes people have doubt in certain areas of their life. And this is what God has taught me. Sometimes people have doubt in certain areas of their life. And so when you share what you're doing and where you're moving forward and where you're taking things, they have a doubt in that area, perhaps in their life. And so that ends up trickling in to the doubt that they have for you in that area of your life. And that is where you've got to be so careful. So Daniel Priestley's book has really helped me understand that to be a key person of influence, to really make a difference in the world that you want to make a difference in, there are some things about my business that I have been refining, that I have been finalizing, as you could say, because the truth is I already have a lot of the things that he teaches and that he's talking about. Like he talks about product. I have many different products for modelme now. We've built this business I have built this business. I love saying we, and I'm like, we. Tash, who is the we? Me, myself, and I. That's who. Me and the Holy Spirit. Built this business to a place where we have different offerings now, right? If you want one-to-one support and you want to walk one-to-one with someone, we've got mentoring. If you want to come to an event and be part of a community and also progress and be equipped in a certain area for your mental health, they're your events. We have the on-demand platform that has taken our events online. We've also got our podcast, so you can watch our podcast like completely for free. And now we're doing corporate. So we do corporate workshops now. It's so exciting because we've got some in the diary. I'm so excited. I've wanted to do this for such a long time, and I suppose I finally gave myself a kick up the butt and was like, you actually can do this. What are you doing? And sometimes you need to do that, right? Sometimes you need to kick yourself at the butt and be like, why are you not doing the thing that you said you wanted to do? And I just really appreciate this book by Daniel Priestley because he's helped me realize that all I need to do is tweak a few certain areas of my business, of how I'm doing things, and it's just going to start to make more sense and be the business I really want it to be and help people in the way I really want to help people. So one of the areas that I realize I need to own more and step into is owning my story. And I do own my story, but how can I put it? It's quite hard to talk about, you know, and I have healed from it. I am grateful to say that I've healed from it. And I do really believe that. And there have been deeper layers of healing over the years. And so I think, you know, everybody, like I said, has always got an opinion. And some people will say to you over the years, oh, like, you should be here by now with your business, or you should be doing this. And it's like, you should shut your mouth. I actually don't say that to people, like that's actually rude, but like everyone is going to have an opinion. And the truth is, for me, I am a woman of faith and I just want to do what the Father is telling me to do. I just want to go where he is calling me to go. And I believe over the years I've been obedient to his calling and what he wants me to do. Perhaps I've needed more confidence in certain areas to then get the obedience to do that. And it has taken time in some areas, and that is okay. I don't feel I've been disobedient. I feel like there have been some things recently where I've understood that God has had to take me on a journey of healing in order for me to get to a place where I have the confidence now to step into it. Me sitting and doing this podcast right now, I mean, I ordered a new ring light. It doesn't work. Lovely. And I've had it for about a few days in my room now. I was away at the weekend and I just tried to make it work, and I was like, that's what you get for spending 25 quid instead of spending more money. Although I did buy a great one years ago from Amazon, which I think was about 20 quid. So anyway, I'm going to go back and reorder that one because this one doesn't work and that's just not ideal. However, I've managed to make the lighting work. Are you guys proud of me? So this is why I'm in this part of my room. Normally I film in a different area. And today I woke up and was like, I'm going to film a podcast today. And I've been meaning to do it for about a week. And so I just was like, sometimes you just got to put your tripod in a certain corner, forget the background, put your cinematic view on so it kind of blurs everything a little bit, like on one of those Google Meet or Zoom meetings that you have where you blur your background. I never do that, by the way, but I get what people do because... And at the same time, I'm kind of like, who cares? Like, who cares about what your background looks like? Like, I'm looking at my background now and I'm like, who cares? But at the end of the day, what is most important about this piece of content is what I am saying. It is not necessarily what it looks like. I mean, of course, I put makeup on, I put this nice new cardigan, and I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit itchy. So that's probably why it was in the charity shop. But I love it. I love the buttons, and it nips you in on the waist. Look at that. Yeah. I realised I spilled egg on my jeans this morning and couldn't be bothered to change them. So here we go. I just really think that sometimes when you, in business, but sometimes in life, you just need to get your camera, press record and go. And I think there's people like Myron Golden, Andrew Womack. Like Andrew Womack is an old school Christian teacher, okay? He is amazing. If you want to hear anything about the word and you want the Bible broken down to you in a very clear, truthful way, like Andrew Womack is your guy. But also Myron Golden is very good, and he's a business teacher, but also he is a Christian. I just love the way he breaks down the Bible, the way he gets his revelations and then he shares them. It is incredible. And another person that I have just had come up on my feed recently is Gary Vaynerchuk. And Gary Vaynerchuk is a little bit of a potty mouth for me. I don't swear, so I'm going to say I try not to swear because I'm human and I fail all the time. I mean, I don't fail all the time. I shouldn't say that over myself, but like, I'm human. I make mistakes is what I'm saying. But Gary Vaynerchuk, he swears a little bit much for me, so I have to be a little bit careful because what you listen to comes into your mind and you ruminate on it, and before you know it, you're going to I'm going to end up swearing, and I don't want to. So, segments. But what I love about Gary Vaynerchuk is he is just he is the definition of a go-getter, right? But he's also a bit of a slap in the face. Like, you know, if you're struggling with confidence or motivation, or you're overthinking things, or you don't know if you should be releasing that kind of content, you just need a bit of a slap from Gary Vaynerchuk, and then you're just going to get out of your head. And I think that for me is me filming right here. I prayed and I said, thank you, Lord, that the lighting's going to be good the whole time. And you know what? We're about 10 minutes in and we're doing quite well so far. So I just really am... I just really want to encourage you that sometimes in business, you have to just find a way. You make it work. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look completely polished. I mean, the sound is better than it's ever been because I have these really amazing microphones. And it's the easiest thing ever. You plug it into your phone. I can see the little screen. The microphone thing is going, what that was, I don't know. I'm sorry about that. I just want to encourage you, like, just start, you know. I think I have a friend that I'm always just like, keep going, keep knocking the door. There's a favorite scripture of mine, which is also written on my wall. And it says, ask, seek, knock. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives. For the one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, the door will be opened. And that is from Matthew 7:7 and 7:8. And I just love it so much. It's such a good scripture. First of all, ask the Father, Lord, what should I be doing with my business? What should I do with my day? Then you've got to seek his face. Lord, what is it you want for my life? What do you want for this business? And then you have to knock. Honey, that is taking action. That is knocking on the doors. That is, I actually have a mug. Here's my mug that actually has lip gloss on because I'm wearing gloss today. I love this mug so much. It's just such a good scripture. Like, the knock is really about taking action. What are you doing to take action in your life? What are you doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis maybe, to push your career forward, to push your business forward? And I think so often, I hate to say it, but sometimes, people are like, just pray, just pray. I'm like, yeah, you do need to pray. And it's not by your works that you're saved. However, you also need to get off your ass. Get off your bum is what I should say. Just go try, if it doesn't work out, then you realize, if it's hard, because I do get it. Sometimes, we just want to overthink and we get ourselves in this place. But there's a story in the Bible that talks about Joshua. Now, Joshua is the one that took the Israelites into the promised land. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, basically, the Israelites are God's chosen people, okay? The Israelites, the Hebrews, they were living in the wilderness, and Moses was their leader. But there was a lot of different things that happened, and basically, long story short, God couldn't let Moses take the Israelites into the promised land for a bunch of different reasons. Joshua and Caleb had faith in a different way to all of these other Israelites. And if you want to check more about that, I'm actually going to put on a message that I spoke at last year at a conference. I'm going to put it onto YouTube, so I will link that below. And that talks more about Numbers 13, 14 and the amazing Joshua and Caleb. So then Joshua and Caleb, they're taking the people back into the promised land, from the wilderness into the promised land. But what they had to do when they got to the promised land is they had to fight 31 kings. They had to fight 31 kings. And I'm sharing that with you because what you need to understand is sometimes you might get to a place where you're like, wow, okay, here's my promised land. I'm in my spot. You're going to need to fight for what God has got for you, because we have an enemy that prowls the earth looking for someone to devour. That is what the scripture says. And so you're going to have to sometimes put your big girl pants on. You're going to have to learn how to wield your weapon. I've been thinking about this recently. The Israelites would not have known. They've been living in the wilderness for decades, right? And all of a sudden they are in the promised land. The provision stops because God fed them every day with this thing called manna that fell from the sky. I know it sounds insane. The Bible is crazy, but isn't life? So they're in the promised land. All of a sudden they're not getting the provision because they're in the promised land, and then they've probably never wielded a weapon in their life. They haven't got a clue how to fight these people, but God was with them. So He gave them divine wisdom, divine direction on order how to fight these people. And He gave them favor. He gave them favor. They had to fight when they got in their promised land. So I want to encourage you, and I can sit and testify. I could tell you so many stories on how I have had to fight for my land, for modelme, how I've had to fight for certain things to come to pass. And, I'm sat here nearly 7 years into my business, and I'm like, wow, Lord, only you could have done this. This isn't by my own works. And I really do feel that we live in a culture today, a society where, frankly, we are pretty obsessed with feeling like we can do this all by ourselves. And I'm just going to give you some news. You can't. And it's really, really, I know, going against the grain. A lot of people are going to watch this and go, who are you to tell me that I can't do this by myself? I know you're not going to agree with me. And that's okay. At the end of the day, I can sit here and say that to you because I have tried. I have tried to do it all by myself over and over and over again. It results every time in burnout. And I think one of the things that we just have to be aware of, especially as women, and especially as we're approaching International Women's Day and the language that people use around this time and what it means to be a woman, I think we got to really take it back and go, what is the role of a woman? What is the role of what I am supposed to do on this earth? How did God create women? What did He create women to do? And I'm completely here for women being businesswomen, successful businesswomen, to create these big companies. Some of my favorite companies, some amazing people that I'm inspired by are female entrepreneurs, I love the brand One Active and I love Chrissy Seller. I love it. But you know what I also like about Chrissy Seller at the moment is that she has just become a mother, and she is talking about the balance of motherhood, building her business. She lives in America, but she's traveling to London once a month because she's doing, her offices, her company was based here, and she's building it in the US. And I just think, I'm so grateful that she is kind of opening the door a little bit and she is sharing a little bit of what it's like. And of course, she's not going to share everything, and that would be, unrealistic of us to expect to. And I also think we have unrealistic expectations sometimes where we're like, why is that woman not sharing everything? Well, because that's actually unhealthy. And again, I can talk from that place where back in the day, and I'm talking a few years ago, I used to overshare everything. And I think I've really learned, and it goes back to what I was saying before, like, yes, last year I died to the idea of externally processing and that being something that I just give myself the excuse to like talk about everything that's going on. And I'm so grateful, but also I can see that God has been doing that in me over the years. It's been a step-by-step process. And I feel like at the end of last year, I had a whole nother test, and it kind of felt like the test at the top of the mountaintop. It was like, right, am I really gonna do this kind of last final part of the test and actually get through it? And it's still a test sometimes. You know, I have some days still, like I text my friend last week and I said, can you pray for me? Like I have something I need to do and I'm just, I can't get into it, but can you pray for me? And it was quite amazing because then after the fact I can talk about it. After the fact I can say, hey, this is what was going on. But I'm learning that actually when I'm in the process of it, I need to just be like, okay, God, I trust you. You know, I trust that actually your way is better than my way, that actually you're with me and you want me to talk to you before I really talk to anybody else. And let's be honest, it's quite hard to do that when you have been externally processing your whole life. I'm not going to lie, I'm getting a little bit hot, but the cardigan is the outfit. So we're sticking with it for now. I really wanted to share a bit about my story with body image and body dysmorphia. That is one of the big reasons why I wanted to do this podcast today. And I think, you know, I think it's really important to talk about our journeys. I think it's really important to talk about how we've overcome, because that is how other people can be released and how they can, you know, I really believe actually that our testimony sets people free. And I'm reminded actually that God gives us keys for us to help people to literally set captives free. And, you know, your mind might be the thing that holds you in bondage. It might be thoughts. It could be things that happened to you as a kid. And I even had a conversation yesterday with someone in my family, and the Lord is so good. Like, I was on the phone, and I'm the only Christian in my family for now, but the Lord was just showing me stuff yesterday when I was on the phone, and I was sharing things with someone that I really love so dearly, and we were talking about insecurities, and I was able to literally tell them exactly what the root of that insecurity is that they have, like big insecurities this person has. And it's hard for me sometimes because not that I'm completely, I have dealt with, of course I have some things that I still have to walk out with because this is life, right? But it's quite amazing because I realized yesterday that God gave me wisdom to say what I needed to say. And so I was able to just really shine a light on the areas of their life that they need healing from. And it was quite remarkable because God really gave them ears to listen, because I have said stuff like this before, but definitely I said it in a new way, and that wasn't me, that was the Lord. And it was quite funny because at one point they were saying, oh, like, how did you get so clever? And they were like joking. And I said, it's not me, it's God. Like, and then I was able to testify on what God has done in my life and how different I am. You know, my family can say what they want about God. At the end of the day, they know who I was when I was 15 years old. And I was angry. I was an angry girl. I was an angry teenager. I have radically changed since I got baptized in 2018. My life has changed completely. I'm not the person that I was. And so my family can actually say whatever they want to say about Jesus. They can say whatever they want to say about my faith. I know my life is a living testimony. So if you are someone that you've been saved, you've been baptized, you've given your life to the Lord, and your family are like, you are insane, you're crazy, what's going on? You just need to hold on, and you just need to keep on walking the good faith. You need to keep on walking out your salvation with God. You just need to focus on Him. Only, you know, you can only control yourself. So control what you can control. And in time, your family will see, oh, she's different. She's changed. She doesn't swear, like, I don't swear anymore. Like, I used to swear all the time. That's what you do, right? Like, I mean, maybe not every family, but my family did and does. And, you know, she doesn't get angry like she used to. It doesn't matter who pops off at me at my family. I don't pop back. Like, I can be very direct and I can, like, shut people down. I have got a mouth on me, like, which is, you know, kind of funny because those of us with a good mouth and know how to fight and argue, when you get to know God, you realize you got to give that to the Lord. You got to just hand that over to him. And they know that in me. They see that in me. They see that I don't go off at people. They see that I'm not the angry person that I used to be. And, you know, even at Christmas, there was something that happened and I had to just like be like sharp with it and like shut something down pretty quick. And immediately I was a bit like, oh, shouldn't have raised my voice. And then within 10 minutes, I was glad that I had, and I was praising God for giving me the, I suppose, authority to be able to do so because of the way that this person was wiling out. And I was like, it's Christmas Day. This is not happening. This is not happening. And I don't know about you guys. Christmas is rough. I don't love Christmas. I'm going to be very, very honest. It is, I brace myself when it gets to Christmas. And every year, the last few years, ever since I became a believer in Jesus, I have tried really hard to enjoy Christmas more and to just be softer and softer, because I can get hard. I can get tense when I'm around my family because I just know anything could happen. And it's like, oh, okay, how can I be the protector? How can I be the one that, you know, holds it together? And the truth is, I just need to depend on God. I just need to rely on him and know that he is my strength. And it is not easy. So if you find Christmas hard, honey, me too. But I'm believing that every year it is getting better. This year was hard. There was some real not pleasant things that went down, but yeah, it's okay. It's not going to be like that forever. You just have to keep your eyes on Christ at the end of the day. So I think the last 10 minutes of the podcast, I just really wanted to share a bit more about my body image story, and hopefully it'll help you guys understand why we do what we do at modelme, why I am so passionate about helping people overcome things like imposter syndrome, helping you have a true healthy body image of yourself, helping you understand how to see yourself truly. I think it's so important that we actually ask ourselves, how do I see myself? And I think in order to be the most authentic version of yourself, there are some hard questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves sometimes. There are some challenging things that we're going to have to face, because what we need to realize is sometimes we go through things and they put walls up in us because we've been hurt, or something bad happened to us, or we did something bad. And so in order to protect ourselves and, you know, maybe be the person that we think we should be, it's like we create personas. And there's nothing wrong with that to a degree. Like, I understand people do that, and that's a form of like coping with things. And I know that that was me for a very long time. I had a real facade what was going on. But I think in order to do what you are called to do, and in order to have the friends that you're called to have, in order to marry the man that you want to marry, to be the mother that you want to be the successful businesswoman that you want to be, I think you've got to understand who you are. You've got to understand, who is the authentic Tash? What does she look like? You know, who is the authentic Sally? Who is the authentic Sophie? I don't know why I'm sticking with the S's right now, but, you know, who is the authentic Sarah? Like, who is that woman? What does she look like? What actually are her authentic, what's her authentic self? What are the values that she believes about herself? What does she think about her self-worth? And we have to be very honest and realize that we live in a fallen and a broken world, and things happen to us, we do things, and we end up having to deal with these really traumatic things that have gone down. So I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of my journey, okay? I'm going to give you a bit of a trigger warning. I'm going to share some stuff that if you've ever dealt with body image issues or body dysmorphia or eating disorders, I realised that actually I don't know if I'd call it a disorder, but I have had some problems with my body image for longer than I realised. I have had issues with my eating for longer than I would dare admit. You know, I remember being at university and walking through something really hard, and I would just stop eating altogether. And I am that kind of person that if I'm stressed, you know, some people I think have that. Some people in my family have a stress reaction. If they're stressed, they don't eat. That's me and one of my sisters. Whereas I have other people in my family who, you know, have a stressful thing happening and they eat. And so that kind of doesn't help if you're somebody that then also has body image issues like I did. And I didn't realize that I did, but it stems from even being like a teenager and not thinking that I had, you know, I had such a flat, I had and still kind of do, and I'm okay with it now because I just grown up and got over it. But when I was a teenager and I had more of a flat chest, I was like, oh God, no one, like, this is weird. Like, I don't have a curvaceous body. And my older sister didn't have that problem. And so I found that quite like weird that we weren't the same. And, you know, then I remember being at uni and not eating properly because I'd gone through something. I remember my mum came to uni and I didn't really tell my mum what was going on, I don't think, but a mother's intuition, right? She drove up to Nottingham and she bought like a freezer full of food. Like, she had made things like, I think, lasagna and spaghetti bolognese and, you know, meals that you can like freeze and keep in your fridge. And she had like packaged it all up. Like, honestly, what my mum did for me, it was crazy. Like, she just turned up with all this food, like, I'm talking bags of food and like snacks. And we went for this walk. She had one of the dogs with her. We went for this walk in Woollerton Park, and I just remember being so low and down. And oh, it's so emotional. Like, I didn't think my mum really knew what was going on, to be honest, but she knew that I wasn't okay, and she just turned up. And, you know, I'm grateful. I'm really close with my mum now, and I love my mum. She's been through so much, and she has really, yeah, she's really done the best that she could ever do for her 4 kids. Like, my dad left when I was 8 years old, and it's crazy because I can't even imagine how hard that must have been, you know? And I just think about the moments where she's turned up and been there for me. And it's just wild, isn't it? Because then I thought my body dysmorphia, my body image issues started when I went to Milan. So I became a model in 2016. After 8 months, I was signed in Milan, New York, LA, and London. London was my mother agent. And I decided to go to Milan on a season. I had been measured and signed about 6 weeks before Christmas. And they were like happy with me, like, cool, you're the right size, like, let's take you to Milan. And nobody really tells you what that's like when you're going to go and do a season in another country. I probably lived in a room not that much bigger than this with 2 other girls. And the kitchen was part of the bedroom, if you know what I mean. Like, it was just like an extra square that had no door kind of thing. Tiny kitchen, like a meter square wide. And obviously we had this bathroom, and I lived with a girl from Sweden who definitely had also body image issues. And I know that because it was really awkward. We would never talk about it, but we could both see it in each other. It was the strangest thing ever. And this other girl was from Brazil, couldn't speak a word of English. So we used to have Google Translate conversations. And I think she also knew I had things going on, but I couldn't talk to her. Like, how do you tell someone I'm starving myself? Like, in Portuguese, like, how do you do that, you know? So I went to Milan. I'm sorry, my story is flipping all over the place, but I didn't say flipping like a swear word, I meant like jumping. Oh God. But yeah, so I went to Milan. My second day there, I'd found this health food store, and I was really happy because I'd gone and done a big food shop at this health food store. It was kind of like Holland and Barrett, you know, Italian version. And I walked into my agency, put my bikini on. All of this is very normal. You know, you do your catwalk in front of your agency. There was like 12 agents. They were all whispering, talking in Italian. I can't understand a word that they're saying, but I know that they're not happy. They're not satisfied with me. And I don't know what I've done, but there's odd words. There's London that I can understand. There's Natasha. There's, you know, the woman that ran the agency, that she, you know, I could sense that they were kind of saying to her, like, I thought you measured her. I thought you said she was good, you know. And they were like, go and get changed. When I got changed, came upstairs. This other woman, an older lady, God bless her. God bless this woman. She sat me down and she said, Natasha, I don't know what we're going to do with you. And I was like, what have I done? I had no idea. She said, I don't know what we're going to do with you, but we're going to have to cancel a lot of these castings. And so she got these castings out in front of me and she started just crossing them out. Now, it was Thursday and Friday was a bank holiday. So I had 3 days basically to lose a lot of weight. That was how I saw it in my mind. Monday and Tuesday, she was just cancelling. Cancel, cancel. She would scribble out the casting, look at me and say, you're too big. And then she'd cross it out again and she'd say, you're too big. And that was just repetitive. Like, I'll never forget that moment, I don't think, in my life. it was so, I just didn't even know what I'd done wrong. Like, and she was going, you're too big. But I was like, what have I done? Like, I actually just didn't understand what I'd done. I didn't understand what I'd done to be too big. I didn't understand how, it made no sense to me. And then she said I was disgusting more than once. And she just would literally say, like, you're disgusting. And yeah, she was just like, I don't know what we're going to do with you. Ugh, it's so awful. It's so awful. But when I think about it, this is why I don't tell this story. Because it's so awful. I don't normally tell it in this way, so it's quite confronting, I'm not going to lie. But wow, I actually did a podcast like this before Christmas, but guess what? I never put it live because it's such a rough story. Anyway, so I left the agency carrying this big bag of food. I'd never had a problem with, well, I thought I'd never had a problem with my weight. You know, I'd never had a problem with my body image. And the truth is I hadn't, not to this severity. I told my agency in London, and she had just got to LA, and she just landed, and she said, whatever you do, don't do anything stupid. I think she said something like that to me. And I was like, and God bless this woman, because she obviously didn't know what I was thinking in my mind. I don't know what I really told her. I remember my boyfriend at the time, who obviously was not my boyfriend for much longer after that, he was like, why don't you just, I mean, you might think this was fine to say, but I'm not a quitter. I am not somebody who just walks off from a situation, and I wasn't then anyway. And so he was like, just come home. And I was like, no, I can't come home. This is my career. The reality is my career was my everything then, you know. That was where I found my identity. That was where I found my purpose in my career. And so I was like, I'm not coming home. Like, what are you on about? So I ended up working with a personal trainer, and I'll be very honest, he was amazing, and I was vegan at the time, and he said, I'm not working with you if you're vegan. And I was like, fine, but I'm not eating meat. Weird. So I ended up eating just lots of eggs. But for the first week while I was there, I really didn't eat anything. And I was juicing. So that's kind of all I'm going to say on that, because it's just important, I think, to not share too much sometimes with certain stories. And I just became obsessed with working out. Like, I would work out twice a day. I would go and sit in this sauna. I didn't even like saunas, but I would just go and sit in there to kind of like strip off the weight. And it was good. I had this PT with me, but you know, as the weeks went on, like the first 10 days were the worst. But as the time went on, I would just lie to him. It's like these little lies, and I'd say that I'd eaten something when I hadn't. And it was just so bad. Like, it was so bad. I look back and it was horrific. And I used to go for long walks at night, like 2 or 3 hours at night in freezing cold Milan in January. And I would just think, what would happen if I carried on walking and I never turned around? And I was like, would anybody even notice? Like, would anybody notice? Would anybody know? And I lived a double life. Nobody knew in England what was going on really with me, because I kept it to myself. And I remember one day after about 6.5 weeks in Milan of just, you know, the worst. I didn't work while I was there. Like, I didn't make any money whatsoever. I would turn up to castings and it was just horrific. Like, people would constantly turn me away, and you'd be in bikinis next to these girls who were so thin, and you'd just constantly be comparing yourself, and it was so bad. And yeah, after 6.5 weeks, I woke up one day and I was like, I felt like I really heard the voice of God. And at the time I didn't know what it was. But I woke up and it was like, Natasha, you are so deeply unhappy. What are you doing? Like, you don't need to do this. And I was like, really? I don't need to do this. So I booked my flight, didn't tell anybody. A week later, I told my agency that was when my flight was. I said, hey, I'm going back to England. I'm going to go do London Fashion Week, which was true. But they didn't know I wasn't coming back. Like, there was no way I was going back. I hated Milan for a few years. I'm okay about it now, and I've healed. And I actually think later on that, a year and a half later, I started working at Soho House, and I started working with a lot of Italian people. And that, I think, really healed me from what this woman had said in many ways, because, you know, when you have something so horrific and dark happen to you in a place, you kind of just think, oh, Italy is a terrible place. And Italy is not a terrible place. It's a beautiful, amazing place. But what happened to me in Italy was horrific. And so I came back from Milan I broke up with my then boyfriend, and my life changed forever. I mean, I had probably really horrific body dysmorphia for, I would say it was really bad for about a year. But that's why I quit modeling in the end 2.5 years later, because I realized I actually wasn't well. You know, when I came back from Milan, my agency in London said, don't lose any more weight because you'll lose all your clients in London, which was not a bad thing to say. But in my head, I was like, I've just gone from being too big to now you're going to tell me I'm going to be too small. Like, what? It was so confusing. And I just was obsessed with taking progress pictures. I was, reading labels of the food. When I was in Milan, I was weighing myself every single day. I was consumed by this idea of being smaller, and I couldn't even tell you what smaller weighed like or looked like or felt like. I mean, it felt horrific, I'll be honest with you. I was so miserable. There are pictures of me from Milan where my eyes are so dark. I look so down. I look so miserable. I'm just, yeah. And I hate talking about that time in my life, if I'm going to be honest. That's why I haven't done this podcast. That's why I haven't shared this story in this way, because it was one of the worst, it was the darkest time of my life. But out of darkness, a really bright light came. And that was the year I met Jesus. That was the year that my life radically changed, because I met God, and he made me realize that actually my identity is not in my work, because that was the problem, right? What she said to me was pretty awful, but the problem was that I put so much weight in her opinion and her words, because my career meant so much to me. And I had to, I met Jesus, and he made me realize you are so much more than your job title. You're so much more than your career. And I know I sat for the first 20 minutes of this podcast talking about business and your career and your work, but like, that is important, because I do believe you're called to work. However, it's not your job that you find your purpose in. You're so much more than that. You're detailed. You're so intricate as a human being. You have relationships. There are things about you that, you might never ever get to do through your job. And so I'm really, really, really so grateful that I can sit here and say that I'm overcome. I'm through, like, thinking that my self-worth comes from if I'm skinny enough, and that was something I got delivered from literally 2 years ago. So yes, what happened to me was in 2017 when I was in Milan. However, it was until 2023 that I was still being healed from things. And I think it's so horrific how people can speak words to us or over our lives, and they can radically change the course of our life. They can change the way that we look at ourselves. They can change the way that we look at things. Like, I didn't think I was lovable. I thought I was never going to be loved by anybody. I never thought that I just didn't know how I could ever be loved if I was that disgusting. That was the story I told myself, and it was just so bad. It was so unhealthy. Like, even 2 years afterwards, I would do fashion week and I would lie and I would not eat, and you live by yourself in London, right? Like, I live in a shared house now. I lived in a shared house then. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody was able to keep count or check on me if I was eating properly or not, because I lived by myself. Like, nobody was able to keep that kind of track record. And so it's crazy how we can lie to ourselves, and how when you don't live in deep community with people that you allow into your life, that you're vulnerable with, that you're intimate with, that you allow them into the dark and deep parts of you and your soul, you could just get away with it. You could just get away with being this, doing these things to yourself. And it's so crazy. And that is why I do Model Me, because I know people need community. And I had body dysmorphia, and that led into imposter syndrome, because I was absolutely desperate to be accepted, and, being a model in the industry when I felt like I'd been so rejected. And, so I would do everything I could to try and like work and do all the test shoots and constantly be building my portfolio. And I was working as a model, and that was great, but I never felt accepted. And I always felt like I was chasing this idea of how do I belong? And then I met Jesus, and it took time for me to really feel like, actually, I can belong in this space. And now I realize I walk into the room and I change the atmosphere. And that's not my ego. That's me understanding that as a human being, God put light inside of me. He gifted me and blessed me with this ability to be able to walk into rooms and change the atmosphere, because I carry the Holy Spirit in me. And so now it's a completely different thing. You know, I don't have imposter syndrome like I did before. Every now and then it tries to rear its ugly head and it tries to come and be like, you shouldn't be in this room. And then I go, thank you, Lord Jesus, that I know you are with me, that I know you've called me to this place, that I'm a light in a dark place, that, you know, every place that my foot treads, you said, God, that belongs to me. And that is not, it's like understanding your identity in Christ. It's understanding who Jesus made you to be, who the creator of the universe. And I know people want to be like, oh, you know, like the universe. It's like, call it what it is. Like, God is the creator of the universe. Like, that is the truth. And he created you with purpose, with meaning, with depth to you. And that you're so much more than what you look like. And you're so much more than your job title. And I am realizing that my story is what can like break chains off other people. Like, that is the power of our testimony. And so I know that this was a really deep story, and there is so much more that I can share, especially when it comes to, you know, coming out of having body dysmorphia, you know, overcoming imposter syndrome, you know, dealing with the fact that imposter syndrome led me to burnout because I would work all the time and I would constantly be trying to like chase validation. And we're actually doing an event for International Women's Day called You Are Worthy, and we will be talking a lot about imposter syndrome and talking a lot about validation, where women seek validation from. And yeah, I hope you can come. It's free to come. It's a Soho House event. So if you're a member, you can sign up through the app. But if you are not a member, you can come on my guest list. We've got a limited guest list available. You can click on the link below and you'll see that as well. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for being part of this with me. And yeah, truly, God bless you. I'll see you for the next episode, and thank you so much.